Let's be honest, we all want to sound like that dope anime character when we speak Japanese, like Naruto or Gojo. But if you're like me when I started out, you probably sound more like a poorly dubbed version of yourself. 今朝起きるのがlate で
レート？レーティングってこと？
違うね。Anyways, late だったので、train station に you know what a train station is, right?
トレインステーション？プレイステーションでしょ。
Yeah, no, not a PlayStation. Anyways, train station に run をして、
ラン！いや、すごいね。いや、俺の時代なんてプレイステーションにはほら、コントローラーしかついてなかったよ。
No, they don't.
ねえねえねえ、みんな、新作のプレイステーションにはランがついてるって。
へえ。
マジで？
No, I didn't say that.
一応調べたけどついてないって。
時計嘘ついてるの？
最低。
No, why would they have orchids? That doesn't even make sense. But don't worry, I'll show you how to master the speaking jutsu. Sorry. Japanese pronunciation is surprisingly easy compared to a lot of languages. Japanese is only comprised of 5 vowels. A, I, U, E, O, and that's it. All Japanese words will comprise of these 5 vowels, and their pronunciations will not change. For example, TA in English is pronounced ta, but if you add a KE to it, now it's pronounced take, you know? But this is not the case in Japanese. For example, the letter ta will always be pronounced ta no matter what you put before it or after it. For example, takai, hatake, katana. Even if you combine vowels, it's just the individual vowels pronounced together. For example, taosu is just ta-o-su. Taosu. There are really only 2 new pronunciations you'll have to master as an English speaker: the Japanese N and the Japanese R. The N is simple with enough practice. It's like an English N, but a little more nasally. Now I know what you're thinking. What? But just hear me out. For example, T-A-N in English is pronounced tan, but in Japanese it would be pronounced tang. Tan and tang. The Japanese R is a little trickier, but it's basically an English R and L combined. For example, in English we pronounce it rice or lice, but in Japanese it's pronounced rice. It's like saying an R sound, ra, but you touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth like it's an L sound, la. If you do both at the same time, it becomes da. Daise. Oh, one more thing. There's also sometimes breaks in words, shown by a small tsu or a double consonant if it's written in English. For example, kita versus kita. And that's it. Now you can pronounce any word in Japanese. Can you pronounce some of the harder words though? Atatakakatta, atatakakatta, taberareru, taberareru. And finally, Japanese also has pitch accent. This means that syllables in a Japanese word will sometimes go up and down in pitch. For example, if you say hashi, it means chopsticks. But if you say hashi, it means bridge. Same with ame, rain, and ame, candy. Now you may be thinking,
this is dumb.
Why does it exist?
To which I'd say English has something similar. For example, present is a gift, but present is to give a presentation. But just like in English, it doesn't really matter if your pitch accent's correct. Japanese people will know whether you mean to say rain or candy based on context. It's pretty obvious. It's never gonna be like,
フライトお疲れ。カナダの天気どうだった？
まあまあ、最近雨すっごく降ってて。
カナダで雨降るの？すごっ。
いや、日本で雨あんまり降らないのか？
いや、日本は飴はお店で買わなきゃいけないよ。
店で買えるの？ Pitch accent will come naturally as you listen and speak to more Japanese. For now, just know it exists. Okay, now, how can you practice speaking Japanese so you too can sound like Gojo? If you were a good student and watched my previous video, You would know that conversation groups, Hello Talk, and italki are all great ways to get conversation practice. But how can you focus on improving speaking? Advice number 1. Forget English. If you want to get fluent in Japanese, you gotta give up defaulting to English every time you get stuck. If you forget a certain word, don't just stand there and panic sweat. Try using a filler word to buy yourself extra time. なんだっけ? These are the equivalent of saying, what's that word again? If a word still doesn't come to you, use workarounds. For example, if you can't remember the word for late, osoi, just use not early, hayakunai. You can also use generic nouns like mono, koto, and tokoro to describe something. For example, if you can't remember the word eki, as in train station, just say densha ni noru tokoro, the place where you board trains. I know it can be hard to admit defeat and say
The place where you board trains.
instead of remembering eki, but using workarounds will make your speech more fluent and you'll feel more confident when speaking Japanese. If you must know a word, it helps to memorize the key phrases nantindakke, or the politer version nantindeshitakke, which both mean, what is that called again? If you describe a specific word and add one of these phrases afterwards, you're asking how to say that specific word. For example, 電車に乗るところはなんて言うんだっけ? Eki, naruhodo. If you put all these tips together, your sentences will already sound a lot more fluent. 今朝起きるのが早くなかったから電車に乗るところまで早く歩くことはなんて言うんだっけ?
走るってこと？
そうだ。じゃあ電車に乗るところまで走って。This brings us to advice number 2. And you're not gonna like this one, but be shameless. Obviously, no one's Japanese is gonna sound good in the beginning. And forgetting basic words like osoi mid-sentence is gonna land a blow to your self-confidence. But if you can push past that awkwardness and just go for it, you'll become confident speaking Japanese a lot faster than you think. But if you are a coward who doesn't want to embarrass themselves, which was sometimes me, you can also get practice without real-life partners. I would sometimes watch shadowing videos on YouTube where there'll be a script on screen and you just read aloud with the Japanese speaker. Shadowing is better than simply reading aloud by yourself because you pick up the nuances in pronunciation. I'll also sometimes do this while I'm watching an anime or drama. If I hear something cool or useful, I'll repeat that line to myself to make the words feel a little more natural for me to say. But I'm sorry to say that practicing with a partner is still the best way to learn in my opinion. There's just something magical about forgetting a word in the moment and making up a new sign language as you desperately try to keep a conversation going that really motivates you to fill up the gaps in your Japanese knowledge. You'll also learn to think in Japanese because you're making your own sentences. And true fluency comes when you stop translating your thoughts from English to Japanese and actually start thinking and conversing in Japanese. The only way you can do this is if you let go of all sense of shame and just put yourself out there and make a ton of mistakes. Hey, no one's gonna be judging you once you're fluent, period. What's up, Tokyo TV crew? Boop the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, it helps spread my videos, you know the drill. And let us know what your funniest miscommunication moment was. Mine was definitely calling a girl kawaii instead of kawaii. That was 7 years ago and it's still burnt into my memory. And there's actually only one more video left in this series, and it's gonna be a little bit different than the others, so look forward to that coming out. And let's pray this freaking country lets me in soon, or I'm gonna lose it. This has been Tokuyu. Thanks for watching Tokuyu TV.